Welcome to Arts Express. This is Prairie Miller, and on the show, sit down for this one. Get ready. Gonna be tough. Pacifica host Garland Nixon reads the corporate newspapers as to how the so-called business titans, alias U.S. oligarchs, decided to lie to you to change your minds.
All right, there we go. Good evening. There's plenty to talk about as always. All right, let's start here. Here's a story I thought of interesting. It's in the Washington Post, which, you know, I ain't no fan of why. To me, it's just a CIA rag, but let's go. Business titans privately urged a New York City mayor to use police on Columbia protesters chat show. So the protesters at Columbia University were saying, hey, we don't want no apartheid, and some business titans. That's, you know what? You ever notice something? Our country doesn't have oligarchs, Ukrainian oligarchs, Russian oligarchs in country X did this, this. And people in our country that got more money than any of the oligarchs in any other country, they're not oligarchs. They're business titans, according to the Washington Post, right? They're billionaires and business titans, never oligarchs. Oligarch is a term. You know what it's like? It's like terrorists. It's like when we bomb a country and kill 1 million Iraqis, it was a police operation, a military operation, I say. But yet when somebody else like attacks and kills 100 people, my God, the worst terrorist attack on earth, they ain't killed like literally 1/10,000th of the people that we kill in a given year. They're terrorists. So, you know, these are not oligarchs. They're business titans. Don't forget that. A group of billionaires and business titans, but not oligarchs. I'll add this, but not oligarchs, working to shape U.S. public opinion of the war in Gaza. I got to keep stopping. Think about what I just said. It's a Washington Post story that says a group of billionaires and business titans working to shape U.S. public opinion of the war in Gaza. Now, there are people in this listening right now. They've been listening to me for many years, and they will recall something that I have said for many years. I said, Americans, the reason Americans support foreign policy is because they're ignorant of it. I've always said this, and people listening right now know, you said it. If Americans knew what their country was doing around the world in their name, they would reject it. So they have to lie to us. So they have to shape public opinion. What they're doing in Gaza ain't new. It started with the Native Americans. That's how ain't new it is. It then moved on to black people. Hey, we need some slaves. I got an idea. And if you actually understand how slavery started, you see, my dear friends, it started in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, they were doing sugar. There were sugar plantations before there was slavery here. And they were doing sugar, and they were making rum, and they were making molasses, and all of these, they had pepper, all these things they were growing in the Caribbean. That's where they were making their money. And then one of the people involved in that got the grand idea, hey, you know what? We could take Negroes over to the New World, and we could grow tobacco and cotton and all kind of stuff. That's where the idea came from. Right. So to look at what's happening in Gaza and say, my gosh, I can't believe that. Yes, several hundred. You're a number of centuries late. This is not new. It's just that you're finally getting a grip of what the ruling elite of Europe and then America and the UK and the British Empire and the French Empire and the Spanish Empire and on and then Portuguese Empire. This is what they have been doing for centuries. And now even those people are so naive that they see what's happening in Gaza and they act like it's the first time that ever happened. You're really, really late here. But let me continue. A group of billionaires and business titans working to shape U.S. public opinion of the war, in other words, lie, privately pressed New York City's mayor last month to send police to disperse pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University, right? So a bunch of people, billionaires, the ruling elite, contacted the president of New York and said, we need you to lie to the people. By the way, do you think that's the first time they ever called him for a favor? Do you think possibly that's how he got to be the mayor of New York City? That's how the game works, my friend. A bunch of billionaires come to some Eric Adams and say, you know there, brother, you'd make a good mayor. If you had enough money, you could become mayor. We know people. We got friends in the media all over the place. So here's what we'll do. We'll put up the money and you can be mayor. And Eric Adams goes, really? I can be mayor? Yeah, man. Man, we love you, bro. Come on. You can do it. It's you. It's yours. And then he does it. And then at some point, they call him and say, bro, you're doing a great job there as mayor. We really appreciate the work, fine work you've done, right? Yeah. But this particular issue over here, if you could do us a favor, it would be much appreciated. They don't have to tell him he knows the game. They made him, and they can destroy him. There was once a governor of New York. What's his name? I can't think of his name right now. This particular governor, you'll remember him. This particular governor decided he was going to go after some banks in New York. And then suddenly, some information came up that he had been dealing with some prostitute and paid her with checks. And copies of the checks came out. Let me ask you a question. Where could we find copies of your checks? Only the bank could probably come up with that, right? He went after Wall Street, and Wall Street went after him, and out the door he went because he didn't do what he was told. So they said to Mayor Adams, brother, we made you, and we can unmake you. Here's what we expect you to do, right? Business executives, including Kind Snack Company founder Daniel Lebetsky, hedge fund manager Daniel Loeb, billionaire Lynn Blavatnik, and real estate investor Joseph Stitt, held a Zoom video on April 26th with Mayor Adams, a week after the mayor first sent New York police to Columbia's campaigns. During the call, first of all, they talked to him about sending, on this chat about sending police. I suspect they had talked to him before then. Hey, send the police. Yes, sir. During the call, some attendees discussed making political donations to Adams. Well, what does that sound like? Bribery. Because you know what that is? It's called bribery, unless the ruling elite do it. Then see, if it's in another country, it's called bribery. Here, it's political donations. During the call, some attendees discussed making political donations to Adams, as well as how the chat group's members could pressure Columbia's president and trustees to permit the mayor to send police. How they could pressure the people, the president of Columbia. In other words, hey, you know that $100 million we're giving you, Columbia? Yeah, do what we tell you or we're going to take it. One member of WhatsApp told the Post he donated $2,100, the maximum legal limit, to Adams that month. Yeah, he donated, right? How about a brown paper bag in a dark alley? Okay, so we look at this. The messages describing the call with Adams were among thousands logged in a WhatsApp chat among some of the nation's most prominent business leaders and financiers, including former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, Dell founder Michael Dell, hedge fund manager Bill Ackman, Joshua Kushner, founder of Thrive Capital, and brother of Jared Kushner, former President Donald Trump's son-in-law. So Trump's people was there. See, here's the thing about this. Y'all poor people, and I'm going to use the word suckers, they teach y'all, oh, Trump, oh, my God, we can't get Trump. You know what they're doing behind the scenes? They're all playing the game, bro. Donald Trump, Jared Kushner's brother. What, you think Kushner didn't know about that? You think Trump didn't know about that? Of course. That whole Trumpity stuff is for you. Kushner's involved, a bunch of billionaires involved, the Zionist billionaires are involved, and they're all like, hey, what do you think we should do? Well, Eric Adams is my boy. I put him in office. All right, let's get him over here and get him to do what we need him to do. What happened ultimately with their little suggestion? I think the police did come in and do exactly what they wanted him to do. The chat was initiated by a staffer for billionaire real estate magnate Barry Sternlicht, who never joined directly, instead communicated through the staffer. The staffer posted on in one October message, one of the first sent in the group, the staffer posted on behalf of Sterling, told the others the goal of the group was, quote, to change the narrative in favor of Israel, partly by conveying the atrocities committed by Hamas to all Americans. In other words, a bunch of billionaires. Now think about this. You're going to find this shocking. This is going to be more than you could handle. I don't know if you're prepared for this. So emotionally, sit down and steel yourself for this one. Get ready, okay? It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. A bunch of billionaires decided to lie to you to change your mind and influence the way you believed about a war. The first time that's ever happened, I got an idea. I'm going to throw my interpretation. This is what they do with every war. Every war that's going on, you're being lied to you. They ain't telling you the truth about none of them. None of them. None of them, none of them, none of them. First of all, let me ask you this question. Did it ever dawn on you that if you live in a country and you have to try to determine amongst the multiple wars that your country is involved in, which one you should support and which one you shouldn't support, that you probably shouldn't support none of them? How many countries are involved in multiple wars? Hey, what are we going to do? Well, the United States is putting missiles in all over around North Korea and China. They're trying to start a war with North Korea and China. And Ukraine is a proxy state. We're putting missiles and weapons into Ukraine, war there. The United States says we've got a just war against Russia. Hey, what about the Middle East? Okay, we're bombing Yemen, but we're doing that for all the right reasons, because at that war, we're doing a good thing. Anything else? Oh, Gaza, that's right. Money into Gaza, slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent. Now that war, think about what I just said. You live in a country that has wars all over the world, and what they want to influence you with each one. Now, this is a good war. Think about it. In 1940s, let's just say you lived in Germany, in Berlin, and Joseph Goebbels was the chief of propaganda, and he gave you the wars. Let's see, we're bombing London this week. We attacked Poland. We just ran through the Maginot Line into France. We got France. North Africa, I think we're trying to get Syria right now. We're moving on. And they gave you in Germany like a list of the wars, like with check marks beside that, the countries that Nazi Germany was invading. Well, we're invading this country, this country, this country. Check off the ones that you support. And if there's a war that you don't support, then just put a green mark beside that. So let's put a red mark by the countries that we're invading that you support and a green mark beside the other ones. That should have been a clue that you lived in Nazi Germany and they were trying to take over the world, right? So the correct answer would be, I oppose all these wars. My God. What are we doing going to war with everybody, right? But you know what? But the people in Germany were poor, God bless them, were so propagandized that they supported all the wars. They were so propagandized. Because the truth of it is this. If you live in some imperial warmongering fascist country that's starting wars all over the world, you ain't on the right side in none of them.
And coming up next on Arts Express, actor Nick Stahl, known for The Thin Red Line, The Man Without a Face, and Terminator Rise of the Machines, is our guest on the show this week, talking about his latest economic crisis cinema offbeat political horror venture, What You Wish For. As a down-and-out chef who turns up in a Latin American town somewhere in the third world, cooking up ruling class dinners with possibly proletarians on the menu. First, some scenes from What You Wish For, then Nick Stahl.
Hey, he's here.
You working?
In Dallas.
What restaurant?
Just at the Marriott. In the kitchen.
Well, it could be a hell of a lot worse.
Maybe you work for an agency?
Catering company, I guess you'd call it.
They just send you to places like this, huh? Pay must be great.
A lot of rich people, they just want an extraordinary experience. Then it gets old.
If you need a sous chef, I'm a good one. Yeah.
I'm excited to work with you. I've heard some interesting things. The produce is in good shape, then, is it?
I haven't chosen the produce yet.
The dinner's tomorrow. You do know that, right?
But this is one dinner.
Yes, of course, it's just one dinner. A bad dish from you and your life will end. Is that clear enough? Good.
Don't you ever feel like you're doing the wrong thing?
If you're around, they will find you. You know this, right?
Make the dessert, Jack.
This soup. Glad you like it.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me. Okay.
All right. What was it about this film and this story, what you wish for, that inspired you to get on board?
Well, they offered it to me. That was the first thing that was nice. You know, it was a good script. I thought it was really smartly written. I really liked the character. It kind of reminded me of an old Hitchcock film or something. The bonus of it all is we got to go down to Colombia, this beautiful country, and film. And so it didn't take me long after I read it to jump on board.
Oh, and where are you calling from?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. And do you identify in any ways with your character, Ryan, in terms of the economic issues younger generations like yours in particular face?
Sure. I mean, I think Ryan's a good everyman. You know, that his situation kind of reflects a lot of people's experience these days, and you know, he's kind of going through a tough time in his life, and he has got some gambling debt that he's dealing with, and he goes down to hide out in South America and runs into an old friend, and he's kind of given this through these circumstances. Don't want to give away to the audience, but he ends up with this kind of moral choice to make, and he ends up assuming his friend's identity, his friend's job, and basically has to pay a price for doing this. So, yeah, I would say the choices he makes are pretty relatable, you know, and it's hard to know how you would sort of react in certain situations, but I think Ryan, I think a lot of people will relate to the guy. So.
And in terms of identifying with Ryan as well personally, do you feel a connection to that dinner to die for in the film and how Hollywood can eat you up alive?
Yeah, I mean, I think the movie plays with a lot of themes like that. The movie deals with envy and greed and ambition. And I think that there's always a balance, you know. There's always another side, you know, to this, you know, the life that looks attractive. I mean, we live in an age of that's very like image conscious, you know, especially with like social media. You know, people really post the good times, right? And people can present themselves or their lives as looking a certain way, but you know, life has balance to it, and so things aren't always what they appear, I guess.
Yeah. And you once said that you always wanted to play Che Guevara in a movie, that he's one of your idols.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. How so?
That's hilarious. I don't remember saying that. I think I'm a little fair-skinned to do that. That could have been a joke. I don't know.
Oh, because you said he's one of your idols.
Yeah. I mean, no. I definitely, you know, respect the guy, but it's funny that I don't think I'm exactly the right type to play that role. I don't know when I said that.
Okay.
That's really funny.
All right. Now, you've also said that you, quote, try to avoid sweet-ass roles. What can you say about that?
I don't know. I don't know when I said that or what that. Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, sometimes your quotes follow you around.
I guess so. I've been doing this since I was 12 years old, so that's probably from way back then.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 44 now, so.
And do you have anything else coming up?
I do. I've got a movie called Violent Ends. It's like a crime drama. And then I've got a movie called Keep Quiet, which is a Native American story I filmed in Oklahoma a few months back.
And what can you say about that Native American film?
It's about Native American gangs, which I guess is a problem on reservations these days. There's a lot of gangs, and so yeah, the story centers around that, and I play sort of a kind of a bad guy role in it. I play a cop who's sort of jaded and kind of cynical. It's really good. Lou Diamond Phillips is in it, and it was a good script.
Okay, and do you feel in any way that the filmmaker Nicholas Tomney brings to this story an added perspective as an Australian cultural outsider looking in?
I don't know. That's a good question for him. I think he's a really talented writer. He's really smart, very knowledgeable about film and his influences. I can't really speak to his cultural perspective.
And you also once said, quote, acting saved me. Please elaborate.
I had, I would say, a childhood that was a little rougher. I didn't love my childhood years. I was kind of one of these kids that just couldn't wait to grow up and be an adult, and wanted to get out of the suburbs that I grew up in, and acting was kind of a little salvation for me. It was something I just discovered that I was good at, and it was kind of felt like my ticket out of the circumstances I grew up in. So.
And when Nick Stahl looks in the mirror, what does he see?
It depends on the day. Right now, I see a really tired guy who just crawled out of bed.
Oh, no. Well, it is early where you are.
It is a little earlier. Yeah, I live in Texas now again, so it's a little earlier for me. But
yeah, I'm over in New York here. Now,
right.
And any last word about what you wish for, and why should people see the movie?
I think, if you're a fan of Alfred Hitchcock, I think you'll like it. If you're a fan of horror movies, of thrillers, I hope that people have fun watching. I think it's ultimately it's a fun ride, and I'm excited for people to get to check it out.
Okay, thank you so much, Nick Stahl, for calling into our show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, hey, John Savage. If you're listening to this right now, you're way ahead of everybody else in the world. This is Arts Express with Prairie Miller, and she's had the courage to give a call to me, John Savage, and I'm grateful to be a part of what I consider to be one of our most important radio programs and networks we have available in this country today. So hang in there. All right.
And next up on the show, Arts Express continues the legacy of Darrell Waistline Mitchell, Detroit auto worker, comrade, and organizer of the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, who tragically passed away on April 17th. His 1 Minute Marxist dynamic episodes on the show live on in tribute to his unwavering, passionate political dedication to the struggle as our Radio Man production, the first in that series presented by Peter Wise, reporting from the Red Star Cafe.
Hello, Pacifica Radio listeners. Welcome to the first of hopefully many 5-minute Marx commentaries. My name is Peter Wise and normally contribute images to the Arts Express newsletter. Sometimes known as Radiohead, broadcasting from the Red Star Cafe in Burlington, Iowa, I hope to offer some opinions and perspectives on what I like to call Red Iowa. That is, myself and a handful of other socialist residents of the Hawkeye State. This talk is really close to home and about one of the largest ammunition plants in the United States and the only one supplying 155mm artillery shells to the Ukraine in its hopeless resistance to Russia's special military operation. The plant, which is union-staffed and officially known as the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant, is currently ramping up production of 155mm shells in a desperate attempt to stave off defeat of the Ukrainian army. Good for the plant workers, no doubt, but a futile effort to change the inevitable defeat of Ukraine. Regardless of whose side you're on, there are several ironies about this effort and only one result. I graduated high school in 1967 near the height of the Vietnam War. The plant, as kids from school referred to it and hoped to get summer jobs at, was nearing production highs. Guess what of? Yes, you got it, 155mm shells. That imperialist war the United States lost even though it had all the ammo it needed fighting what then was known as a third world nation, North Vietnam. The plant never ceased production through all of those toxic effects on the local environment waxed and waned as production levels rose and fell. Almost as if the toxic poisoning of our environment here was a retribution for the U.S. employing Agent Orange across both Vietnams and Cambodia. I call that ironic, too. The fact is no amount of technology and weaponry crushed North Vietnam, and it won't in Ukraine. The only difference is that so far, American and NATO troops have not deployed in the Ukraine yet. You don't have to believe me, I only rose to a humble rank of V5 in the U.S. Army. You can ask people like Brian Berletic, Scott Ritter, Lieutenant Colonel James McGregor, retired, and dozens of other former soldiers and officers, not to mention some CIA employees that are now retired. They think the Ukrainian war is already lost as well. You might think I'd be happy. Sure, Any defeat of imperialism and colonial aspirations by the West is welcome news, but Ukraine falling only exacerbates the chances of a nuclear exchange if NATO, at the behest of the U.S., enters Ukraine to save the very same nation the U.S. undermined with its so-called color revolution years ago. When the U.S. military-industrial establishment, and led by the Biden administration's neocon warmongers, enter Ukraine to save face, there's no doubt in my mind they will provoke a nuclear defense by the Russian Federation that will spiral into total nuclear war. There is no winning nuclear war. As Nikita Khrushchev said, the living will envy the dead. The U.S. is currently supporting a genocidal state that is Israel, and I can't help but think our local plant here is abetting genocide of the Palestinians with many types of munitions, including 155s. I can't hold the workers in Iowa to the fire necessarily. The IAAP provides employment and workers with families a few choices that are practical. Moral choices during the Vietnam War, however, haven't changed. I just wonder how workers here can sleep knowing their products are likely killing women and children in Gaza and ultimately will be responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers fighting a lost conventional war against Russia. Oh, you might ask what this all has to do with Marx. Well, one reason the U.S. is losing the war is because of the nature of our so-called defense industries. While the IAAP is more directly controlled by the U.S. Army, most contractors are voracious profit seekers, so voracious that they produce weapons only for the satisfaction of receiving billions of dollars over and above what they could have used to produce weapons that could be used successfully in Ukraine, or any other place for that matter. The Russian Federation tightly controls its military-industrial base and focuses on providing weapons that work and are appropriate with no thought of profiting financially. The aforementioned artillery shells produced here, in any case, no matter how many, cannot win a proxy war if the Ukrainians cannot provide more personnel to their own army or train the few left to operate and maintain NATO weapons, ammunition, and so forth. So capitalist greed has come back to bite the West in a very big way. It's a corollary to Lenin's words that capitalism would sell the rope to the masses who would in turn hang the capitalists with their own rope. To put a finer point on it, Western sanctions have only strengthened Russia and the Russian Federation's resolve, the same that won them World War II. No amount of Western munitions will change that.
And coming up on Arts Express, are you or have you ever been against genocide? Our Paris correspondent, Professor Dennis Bro, on the new repression on college campuses as the return of the Red Scare, as universities are called before Congress where they must betray their own students, the criminalization of free speech, and the militarization of college campuses across America.
This is Bro on the Global Cultural Beat, Breaking Glass. Today's episode, are you now or have you ever been against genocide? The new repression on college campuses and the return of the anti-communist crusade. University administrators called before Congress in which they must betray their own students and pledge allegiance to a new wave of repression hitting college campuses. Their appearance judged as either hostile, which means they, usually minimally, affirm some semblance of the right to free speech, or as friendly, which means they utterly betray their students and attempt to ally themselves with the repression, or take their cue from Congress and shortly after their appearance, as was the case with Columbia University, to thwart calls for them to lose their jobs, summon the police to halt the protests. Along with this appearance before the tribunal, which this week will feature the Chancellor of UCLA, in an effort to reprimand the activism of the statewide University of California students, is a pledge of allegiance that must be made where protests against the genocide in Gaza must be labeled anti-Semitic rather than anti-Zionist. That is, protests against the murderous policies of the Israeli state. Here the question is, do you condemn Hamas, yes or no? The question itself, designed to eliminate all historical illumination of the situation, is the litmus test for whether or not the person who answers will be allowed to continue to participate in public discourse. If this sounds familiar, especially as practiced in Los Angeles, It's because there are extreme echoes of that scourge of American history, the Blacklist period, where in 1947, but more trenchantly in 1951, the House Un-American Activities Committee held hearings in which they called out witnesses, asking them to betray their fellows and to answer the question, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? The question, by the way, was preceded by, for the committee, an even more important question. Are you now or have you ever been a member of the Screenwriters Guild? Indicating the attack on the supposedly subversive Communist Party was at its core an attack on all kinds of New Deal and post-World War II progressive forces whose strongest expression was workers organizing for their workplace rights. Here the attack is for the purpose of discrediting the global solidarity against an openly murderous apartheid state. In the 1951-52 return of Hewitt to Hollywood, hundreds of writers, actors, directors, as well as teachers, lawyers, and doctors lost their jobs and spent years being surveyed by the FBI and hounded out of whatever employment they might scrape up, either within the film or television industry or outside. Today, the repression of the students increases with widespread arrests, sometimes, as was the case at UC San Diego, with no charge, and other times charging the students protesting on their own campus with trespassing. The latest silencing technique utilizes the Harvard example of threatening to expel students who must pay the maximum penalty for exercising their right to protest and free speech. This repression, though, cannot conceal the fact that the student cause is gaining steam and that the majority of Americans, in one recent poll 55% and 75% of Democrats, oppose the actions of the Israeli government in Gaza. The protests, which began on one campus in Columbia University in New York, have, in the last count, spread to over 140 campuses and are now a feature of university life, not only U.S., but also throughout North America and the world. The repression now is also widespread, with over 2,900 students arrested. In Canada, there are now protests in Montreal and at both McGill and Concordia universities, and in Mexico, protesters at UNAM, the National University of Mexico, have been even more forthright in their demands, calling not just for a ceasefire, but for a halt to the genocide and an end to the Zionist occupation. They are asking to break diplomatic relations with Israel, and even more stridently, to end the collaboration with corporations sustaining the genocide, who they name as Google, Hewlett-Packard, and IBM, among others. In France, a main encampment was located at Sciences Po, or Sciences Politique, or Political Science, the ultra-elite university training ground of the diplomatic corps and current President Macron's alma mater. At another elite university, the Sorbonne, a week after 86 students were arrested for occupying an amphitheater, 200 students gathered on campus chanting, "The Nakba," the original occupation and dispossession, never ended. The students at UCLA who, after the attack by armed thugs dressed in black, still maintain a daily teach-in on such topics as the Nakba and the massacre in the 60s at Jackson State, the lesser-known site of violence against black students that occurred after the shootings at Kent State as part of an earlier anti-war movement. The students, when queried, pointed to the involvement of the university in the military-industrial complex which supports the genocide. At the bottom of Royce Hall, where the encampment occurred, are plaques honoring donors from the defense industry, including Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and right-wing media, Hearst Corporation, Howard Hughes, and Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation. Another historical parallel occurred on the night of the attack. Helicopters buzzed overhead as masked men yelling pro-Israeli slogans threw fireworks into the protest site, beat the protesters, and assaulted them with pepper spray and bear mace, in what one observer described as hours of unchecked violence. There was no real investigation of who these thugs were, erroneously identified in the mainstream media as counter-protesters, but there have been suggestions that they were ex-members of the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, resettled in LA. One of the techniques used to drive demonstrators out of the campus involved playing a loop of a crying child so no one could sleep, a technique that is a military interrogation strategy and the oral equivalent of waterboarding. The police were called, stood by, and watched the carnage without trying to stop it. The next night, they arrived to arrest the actual protesters, the victims of the violence of the previous night. These actions recall the Zoot Suit riots, or more accurately, rebellion, in wartime LA, where gangs of servicemen attacked Latino youth, tearing the colorful clothes off them as they paraded downtown, and then roaming through the Latino district of Boyle Heights, with residents reporting they feared for their lives. The police watched the rampage and then arrested not the servicemen, but the Latino youth. The scene is detailed in my novel, The Precinct with the Golden Arm. In response to the violence directed against those protesting genocide, the university hired an ex-Sacramento police chief to be the head of the newly created Office of Campus Security, a move which one faculty member described as further militarizing the campus and aiding what another member described as the quasi-criminalization of free speech. The attempt to silence what is the majority opinion in the country through media repression had its HUAC and blacklisting echo in the demotion of the Latina actress Melissa Barrera for in effect being prematurely anti-genocide and speaking out in November when the attack on Gaza began. Barrera and Jenny Ortega had starring roles in Scream 6 in a successful attempt to revive and reinvigorate a failing franchise by adding a Latina dimension. When she spoke out, Barrera was immediately removed from the franchise, and the Anglo actress Neve Campbell was called back in her place in a move that commercially had outlived its usefulness, except as issuing a stern warning to those who would dissent on this issue. Despite her blacklisting, Barrera defined her steadfast support of the Palestinians in terms that called the settler colonial aspect of what is going on in Israel into question. She said, "I find that indigenous peoples around the world are always on the right side of history, point blank, period." And this is Bro, the author of The Dark Ages, the next Harry Palmer LA mystery about the return of HUAC to Hollywood on the Global Television and Cultural Beat, signing off.
And now on Arts Express.
Hi, this is Jack Shalom. This recent Martin Luther King Day, the esteemed award-winning poet and friend of Arts Express, Connie Norgren, passed away. Aside from her wonderful books, including Falling Again, Same Boat, and Tonight's Quiet, she left behind a book of yet unpublished poems. With permission from Connie's husband, artist Tom Keogh, I'll be reading some of those now. On a photo from Vietnam of 2 American soldiers holding 5 civilians at gunpoint, all of them standing in a quiet river. That's one story. Not a sound in it. The faces of those 7 as if carved. But can you see the small ripples catching the sunlight, the broken paths in the water? Or this in your mind's eye? Those guns slipping, silent, into the cool deep which swallows them. Those feet making their way over the stones of the river bottom, walking out. Those hands opening to the thin water, muddied now, caressing it. I trim the shelf. This small job brings him back, his steady arm, his earnest concentration on the saw. No let up till that sharp clunk of done. He said, persist. For me, 10 hasty back and forths. Go easy on the push, he said. The teeth do the work. And see, I'm past the half mark. Good, better, then the never rest. He seldom. Reading in August 2021 on the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We, the people, made earth hot, mad, causing quaking, parched river basins, the floods that are coming for us. We know who opened the latch, starting little boy down. 6 miles, 45 seconds, heaven to earth. What great hand could have stopped it? Morning greeting so warm, a cart being pushed, wheels needing a little oil, a knife of light, words themselves dust. Fat man turning from Kokura, cloud-covered, to Nagasaki, 11:02. Each face in Nagasaki a child's. Sky black again. The wind again. Source. Dear tall mother high up, cool mother, carved from soft stone. Waterfall mother, busy at the sink always, the fierce off and on. Mother of new sheets on sick days, folded back in clean welcome. Mother of ginger ale carried up the stairs. Mother of rush and industry and bargains, who put me online at Klein's, wait here. Provider of patterned curtains to sway with me all the rest of my life. Mother of haste, burnt peas, burnt and cut fingers, it'll heal. Mother of the bold front, mother up late alone, reading alone. Mother of keeping something for yourself, something. Kitchen midnight. My mother reading. I'd have some worry, some knot to untie. She told me to speak clearly, step up, say yes when invited, get off your high horse, and for anything broken or lost, well, that's out. She'd watch me for moves. What she thought after I slid my foot into the stirrup, swung my other leg over, when the clip-clopping of hooves away wasn't enough noise to wake anybody? Not sure. What you are reaching for is over. This alleyway with its cooler breath doesn't hold yesterday. The two windows grimed with years, the door weathered shut. Yesterday's gone, along with the shouts of children, their mad, happy run-throughs, the ball bouncing sound. And that caught thread there is like nothing waving in the wind. July 30. Worry mired in every act. Some grief. Morning coffee pot ticking. Red heart sticker on the fridge. Open, shut, on, off, the faucet. Water is life. This startling summer in at the window coming. Out there, hot, bright, you, me, passing the tiny white privet flowers of childhood, the blue morning glories, sheets of bad news loosed, scattering over the sidewalk. Line of quiet people lost in thought, quick girl behind the counter, chair by the door for air. Head down to what must be done, so do it. And then, thank goodness, night. The moon and I and one white elephant cloud bending its knees, lowering itself to rest. Door, table, walk, roof. This will be a big poem because there is a door in it, and a door can swing on its hinges even if it is old and rain-swollen. The hinges on this one, make a song, and this one has a window in it as well. This will be a big poem because it has a big table, also old. Please, picture the chairs, all kinds, and in groups close to the table, some facing each other. Anyone can pull up a chair and sit. There are 100 chairs. This will be a wandering poem because it has in it a very long walk. This poem will be like the sky. Take words like blue and lowering and dark ocean with bright fish swimming and keep on going with them. The sky's the limit, which suggests the opposite if you focus on the word limit. For this poem, dress as if you are your own house. Pack a tent and a sleeping mat and more than one jacket. After your walk, and you open the door, and it sings to you, and you go inside, you will find that this poem has no roof. You've been listening to Poems by Connie Norgren. This is Jack Shalom for Arts Express with host Prairie Miller.
And that's all we have time for today on Arts Express, Expression in the Arts. And if you'd like to express yourself too, you can write to us at theradiogoddess@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Prairie Miller leaving the station.